in the sustenance, then you can take a humble wife. But, yeah.
This is about grooming. They groom people. And they talk about
Raj grooms people.
Yeah, don't say that. Hey, Budgie, hold it. Yeah, sure. Make sure it's ticking over.
Yeah.
We need. This is a Sikh circle now, so you need to move. You need to move.
He's beside me, yeah.
We don't need any more Muslims.
He's with the white tag, yeah. I said, you go. I said, you must say, you go. I will want you.
Alright, so,
Is it alright from here? Yeah?
Yeah.
Sure.
So what we're going to do, I don't know if you can see, is it recording?
It's not on, no, sorry, I don't think. Take it, yeah? God bless. Alright.
Do me a favour, ask Leon if it's recording first.
Yeah, it's recording.
No,
Is it?
Just double check.
Yeah.
Just double check. I don't trust anyone. Double check. Alright. Alright. So what we're going to do here, we're at a Sikh circle, and today is really a Sikh circle. There's a Sikh here, there's a Sikh there,
Over there.
there's a Sikh here, there's a Sikh here. So we have a circle for one, thank God. And we've got 2 more Sikhs over there somewhere, so we might need to ban the milk.
Yeah, they're doing a speech in there.
Big up Tommy Robinson, he's been freed. Hip hip hooray. So
Andrew Charles is coming out.
Tommy Robinson. So all that hard work that we put in.
And there's still Hakeem's coming out in a week as well.
He's not going to be free.
My friend's coming out next month.
Congratulations. Congratulations to everybody for all the protests and for all the hard work of getting him out. And it did pay off. I believe that with all the pressure from all of everybody, I think the government finally saw sense and decided to really bring it out. Alright, so let's go back to something a bit more controversial. What we're going to talk about today is India. And the reason I'm going to speak about it is because I do a joke video called I'm in India and I'm ashamed of it. And so everyone thinks I hate India I hate Indians. I don't. I just hate that for the Indian. And I use him as my kind of like I berate him over India. Now my biggest problem with India isn't the Indian subcontinent. Because I think we've got a beautiful history of 7,000-8,000 years of history that we're really proud of. But I do have a problem with India as kind of poison from 1900s at this point. Do you kind of understand why I might have that issue, or you haven't got an issue with India as a concept of a country, how it's formed now?
Free Kashmir.
Yeah, free Kashmir.
I have a problem with India being part of the Commonwealth. I don't think if you're an independent country, which I don't think India is, it shouldn't be part of the Commonwealth. Being part of the Commonwealth denotes that you are still part of the British Empire. And if you take, for example, 1984, the attack by Indira Gandhi's government, she did seek assistance from the British establishment, or in particular, I believe the MI5 agent went over to India to advise them on the attack. So I'm sorry, just to clarify, the Indian constitution or the formation of it states that it was given permission through a British parliamentary act to declare itself an external state of the British system. So there's nothing legally or anything that I can find that India is an independent country. I believe that it's still in a backwards way a part of the British Empire.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk about 1984 in another video. So 1984 is when the Sikhs were attacked at the Golden Temple. It was attacked by the Indian government, which resulted in Indira Gandhi's assassination and the murder of like 10,000 or above Sikhs. And there's not been no justice for that. That's a much more complicated situation that I would like more Sikhs to kind of discuss with you. Just having 2 of us in such a gentle subject is probably not. So what I was trying to say about India, the reason why I always say I'm Punjabi, a lot of people probably realise I always say I'm Punjabi, but I'm not Indian. And the reason I say that is because I don't agree with India. Remember, Punjab is part of India as a country, but I don't agree with the way India was set up in 1947 and the way the borders and the culture and the borders and kind of drawn up.
So who did the drawing up? The British establishment?
Yeah, it was a British establishment. I've forgotten the guy's name. The guy had never even been India. And he kind of like drew up India, Pakistan and Bangladesh without ever visiting the place from my understanding. And so he did it according to water suppliers and stuff like this, rather than maybe taking into consideration the religion and Lord Mountbatten. which is why Punjab is now split in half. The real Punjab in India is still part of India, and the other Punjab, which is the real Punjab as well, I'm only joking, the real Punjabi. I believe that instead of having India as, because we now have India, Bangladesh and Pakistan. At one point it was India and Pakistan and East Pakistan, which is Bangladesh.
And Afghanistan and Burma.
Yeah. So,
That's right.
Well, do you see that in the mix? Because after
The original India. Well, it was.
all right, let's talk about from let's just say from the partition from 1947. I don't really want to get to Afghanistan or Burma. Let's just concentrate on those three entities. And obviously we know that Bangladesh then had a war with Pakistan and now they I personally believe that India or that the subcontinent should have been split up rather than three countries.
In accordance to his culture, like Gujarati should have had their own land. Yeah, Gujarat.
And so South Indians, as you know, there is actually a separatist movement in South India. And a lot of people don't understand that South Indians are completely different from North Indians. We don't have the same language, we go from an Indo-European language, they go from the Indian language, we have different food, we're actually racially different as well, if you look at the things in the South and North India. And so we even have a different history to a certain degree. So they're looking for a separation as well. And I believe that, we should have had a Dravidian state, which is the South. Punjab should have been kept as one. And we could have had Muslims, Sikhs and Hindus or Punjabis in that country. Obviously we will try and get the balance, so we have to chuck some Muslims out, because there were actually 75%, so we can't have like 2 million, so we'll get we'll chuck some into Pakistan here, and so we have like an equal mix of Pakistan and Muslim, Sikhs and Hindus, and Christians in there as well. And then you would have had Kashmir could have been a separate entity, so we still had Pakistan as well, and Bangladesh, but Pakistan would have been smaller. What do you think of that kind of concept? Because I think a lot of problems we're having is because of the way India was kind of cut up in a, you should say, not in the most productive way.
The problem is, if you take Punjab, the state of Punjab, it's been cut up 2-3 times.
Yeah,
So it's mainly lost out in the long run because that's where all the farming is. That's where all the farming is.
Hey, I'm just talking to my Sikh brother. He joined in off camera. I do like his advice as well. Same my brother here. So when we're talking, if you've got anything to say or if asked, you can say what you want. So what is your opinion about India kind of maybe being split into more countries than just three? In 1947 they split into Pakistan, Bangladesh and India. I was thinking that it should have been Punjab, should have been a separate country. Because Punjab is split in half of Pakistan. What is your kind of take on that?
My views are like that.
You're on camera. Oh, he's on camera. See, Sikhs are coming on camera. Well done. I like that.
Sikhs are taking over.
No one should be scared, man. Just come down, we have a good discussion.
Sikhs are taking over.
Now you need to come.
On cameraman today. Okay.
So majority of them like different states and it shares similar culture and similar values. But we talk about Punjab and we talk about South India. So if you take the example of state of Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and those kind of people like those are Davidians, they have different culture and everything. And there were news in the last week, one before, like they want to have their separate regional flag under the flag of India. So like they want to keep their identity safe and they want to get their right of their language. And Indian government is imposing their Hindi language on the other minorities.
Down to the BJP and RSS. So we'll go into the BJP and RSS. One of the reasons why I think there's a big separatist movement coming from South India and coming from Kashmir. The BJP and RSS are pressed on online. And one of the things they are doing is obviously the Muslims are being most. Everyone says I'm an Islamophobe, but I don't like the BJP either. So they shouldn't be oppressing no one. And so they're oppressing them. What they do with Sikhs, obviously we're in a Sikh circle, so we're going to talk about Sikhs. And one of the problems about the Punjab, one is being split in half, then it's being split again into Chandigarh, then you've got Haryana, then you've got one other part of it, and then the Pani, the water, we call it Pani, they take 75% of the water and they direct it out of Punjab into other areas, and they want 10% more as well. This is actually look, turn the video around, this is the real Indian here.
that's a good point.
There's a real Indian behind us. And so, I know he's back. We're talking about India.
Free Palestine.
We're talking about India.
Free Palestine. Okay.
So,
All right. Yeah, free
one of the
Palestine.
things is that Punjab, yeah.
Free Palestine.
From.
Punjab has been,
Okay.
and it's been, let's just say it's been kind of like taken advantage of.
Free Palestine. Raj, talk about something sensible, more important. Free Palestine.
You know what, yeah? I'm
Stop
trying to be
bullshitting,
very
Raj.
calm, yeah.
We're actually talking about India today.
Oh, is it?
We are all of us.
What do you
seriously,
think about
on serious grounds?
situation?
Yeah.
Free Palestine.
Seriously, we're actually talking about it.
Make America Indian again. Make America Indian again.
Punjab first. They talk about Palestine all the time, so let us talk about our subject now. And the thing is that
It's like how, you know how Sri Lanka was formed and then Bangladesh was formed and things like that. Yeah, so should it have happened or should it not? What about Chandigarh and Haryana? That's separate as well apparently. It is. It's a unitarity, yeah. It's a unitarity. Yeah, yeah. You want to join in? Oh yeah, all right. All right.
Because you know what? It's bad for jobs. You know, being from the camera is really bad for jobs.
It is,
And a
yeah.
couple of employers, right?
But they realise.
They're like, oh, I've seen you. Straight away, you don't get a job.
They're serious.
Yeah, it depends on the political views. Because whenever you show your political views, and because he's putting it on YouTube, it's not good for jobs. Like if you go on YouTube and Raj, he puts it on YouTube, employers go, hello, I've seen you on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh fuck.
Let's get back to first world.
So, and then you don't get your job. Because I'm looking for work at the moment, I'm recruiting for something.
free the meal.
Don't
talk because you're going to get onto my
camera. The documentary is about the Green Revolution and its impact, the negative impact on the soil, all the soil, and the water levels, and they're damaging the soil. Especially,
I see you sneaky. Trying to get me the shot, are ya? Are you his cameraman now? Don't let him move you around. Don't let him move you around.
the camera. My microphone ain't that good.
Soil is less fertile than it is.
Give it back, Raj.
Used to the time before, and it was tested by the Indian government, looking after the Green Revolution in Central Land, and it always have a negative impact. That's why the water level is going down. And yes. Can I just say, I've actually written a book about the water issue, the global water issue. So that book starts off, the majority of it is about India and what they've done. What's happening in India?
British fucked it up.
Is that
British fucked up India.
they're privatising the water supply. So
The British fucked up India.
Listen, mate, if you interrupt me again,
I'm an idiot. He's in the corner. I'm trying to ignore him.
So they're
British
trying to
fucked up India.
privatise the water in India, and the British started the irrigation tunnels, and now they're trying to make a pay-as-you-go system in India. That's why you know this. They're laying a lot of new canals. India, especially North India, is a floodplain. That means that the land gets flooded, and that's where the underground reservoirs get their water from. What India has done, they've built super dams, and they've stopped the water and the flooding coming. And what they're saying is it's global warming, it's climate change, that's why there's no water underground, and it's not true. They're allowing the water to be used up and be poisoned with...
You do know there's a canal that has been built by Indira Gandhi and it's been closed off and they're trying to reopen it. I think they want to divert the water to Gujarat. And so I'm going to say something about, a lot of people are going to say, look, Bhindranwale, yeah, when you listen to what he said, you know, Bhindranwale was a freedom fighter to us who fought the Indian government and he wanted an independent state to a certain degree. If India didn't conform to what he wanted, what was it called, the non-full resolution, wasn't it? And so when you read the non-full resolution, good. The non-full resolution, when you read it, it's actually very reasonable. I mean, one of the biggest problems with India is that under the constitution, which is why one of the main reasons I don't support India as a country is that under the constitution, the Sikhs are classified as Hindu. And we are not Hindu. We have nothing against Hindus, but we are not Hindus. And until that the law is changed, I think that's one of the main crusts of my problem, including the water and the way the Punjab is being treated. What is your kind of take on being classified as a Hindu under the constitution? Is that an issue for you, or is it not a problem? For me it is, but it's not really.
It's not a personal issue for me, to be honest, because the constitution is a constitution and it hasn't stopped Sikhs being Sikhs. So I will say this about the whole separatist movement. I do get slightly upset when pro-Khalistan people shout for a separate state, but they're not in India. I think anybody that wants Khalistan should move to India. I think they should take all their families, everyone, because getting independence is a very dirty and ugly and dangerous job. And no, I don't know about you, all the Punjabis that I come across when I go to India, which is very frequent, are not bothered about Khalistan because they don't want to lose their lives, just like a lot of them did in 1984. So the only way to have an independent state and to do it democratically is to have an election, a referendum. So I get upset when all these people in Canada, in America and Britain shout for Khalistan. Well, go to India and fight for it, because at the end of the day it's the people in India and Punjab that are going to have to do the fight. I don't believe anybody, and I know a lot of the Sikh temples shout for it, they're very pro-Khalistan. I just get a little bit upset. And plus, just like Jedi last week was saying about taking down existing systems, I think you've got to understand that when one system comes down, a vacuum is created. So what's going to go in place of that? You have to be very careful, it has to be very democratic, and it has to be very binding and fair. And I don't think the Punjabi people are ready to have Khalistan, because a referendum isn't even talked about.
But the thing is, the Indian government has created the Khalistan movement even more. Remember, although I want Khalistan, I don't classify myself as a Khalistani because I'm a realist. And like the Israel-Palestinian conflict, I believe there should be a resolution of the two-state solution. And same with Punjab. I don't think we're ever going to get a separate state. So what's the point of having a fight? But I do think Punjab needs to have its respect. I think we should be classified. For you, it may not be a problem, but as a Sikh, I feel offended when under the Constitution we are classified as Hindu. It's like a Christian being classified as a Muslim under another constitution somewhere else. It's just a principle of it. Yeah, I think it's a very simple thing that people can do to alleviate the issue. The other problem is the reason why there's such a big Khalistani movement outside of India now is because of the fact that there's been no convictions for the atrocities that were committed against the Sikhs. That causes resentment because one of the things is that, you know, after 30 or odd years, there's not been a single conviction of a single person who has committed a crime against Sikhs and murdered them on the street. And people know who they are. There are certain politicians that have been recorded undercover that have still not been arrested. So this is why, as a Sikh, I cannot accept India as a country, as a concept. But I still love India as in its history. Like I was reading on Indian history, and I can be proud of the Hindu part of it and this part of it and the pagan part of it. But it doesn't mean I believe in all of it. But I can be proud of it. But as a concept of India, until we have our justice, I can't support India per se. Doesn't mean I support Khalistan.
I don't know how you guys feel, but India would never admit what they did wrong in 1984. When I say India, I mean the Indian establishment. It's not in the fabric of that establishment. They would never do it. And I think it's very complicated. If the British establishment were involved with it, then who apologises? Who's ultimately responsible? And saying that, even though I am Punjabi and what have you, there were mistakes made by the Punjabis. I think
no one's fault though.
Like I said, if you want a separate state, no matter where you are, which country, which type of people, you've got to have a referendum.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You've got to, and that is the only fair and accurate. Picking up arms and causing aggro is, of course, you could have predicted the Indian government were going to get mean and send in the army. They shouldn't have done, because it's crime against humanity and it's disgusting. It shows how weak and feeble they are. But it's obvious that type of government were going to do that.
Yeah, I always say that India would rather let Punjab burn than
yeah,
because just to explain why I believe that is because the Punjab is in such a crucial position within the Indian subcontinent. It's on the border with Pakistan, but you know, obviously all the wars here have occurred on that border, and all the regiments, the highest decorated regiments are Sikhs. If you take the Sikhs out of India, I'm sorry guys in India, you're going to buckle. Yep. Pakistan will conquer you because all the wars have been won by the Punjabi Sikhs. And even the Pakistani generals admitted that when they went into the wars, they underestimated India because they forgot about the Sikh regiments. And so when you take a population that's only 1% and they make up 15% of the army and all the highly decorated armies, the highest decorated regiments, India cannot afford to lose that on the border. And so then you add in, oh, Amy's here, Amy. Oh, Tommy Robinson was freed. Big up Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, baby, Tommy's
I thought you was,
free.
sorry, this is
Yeah.
Amy. You said to me last week he's going to be free. I was like, no, he's not. But I'm happy you was right though, so well done.
Justice,
well
although
done.
he's had a
Big up
terrible
Tommy
time.
Robinson. So with the situation, we've got such a point of position. India, if you're looking at objectively, India would be mad to leave. If you're looking at, objectively as looking at it from out your emotions, India would be mad to leave.
I have 2 points.
Can I ask you a question about Pakistan?
Yeah.
Source of the unity between Pakistan and India. Is it territorial, political, or religious?
Well, all right. So I can do a bit of I can be an Islamophobe now. So I'm gonna take it. I've got bad disease. So India has been conquered from the 10th century. A lot of people go on about the British, like you're Indian. I'm an Indian.
Rakesh,
Always talk
yeah.
about the British. But for 800 years, we had a conquest by the Islamic conquest of India. So at one point, India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, there was no Muslims. And so over 800 years, we're looking at around approximately 150 million dead by Islamic conquest. The minimum is 80 million. And so a lot of people forget this. Obviously, the people that became Muslims are going to be in Pakistan. So the Hindus and Sikhs do have a little bit of resentment because from Muslims, the past 800 years of Islamic conquest was a good thing. For us, it's a bad thing. For us, it was a terrible, oppressive time when all putting jizya, apart from, I think it was one of the Mughal, Akbar was it? No. Akbar, he was the only one that took that away, and he was the most moderate. And so over the time, we've had this kind of hostility between the Hindu, Sikhs and Muslims. So, and then when the partition happened the British obviously ruled India for maybe 200 years, the Punjab only for 97 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
The Sikh religion, which is majority religion in the state of Punjab, was, you could say, industrialized on the back of protecting India and Punjab from the Muslim Mughal rulers. So that's when it went from kind of a belief into an actual religion, right? And Sikhs started wearing turbans and what have you. And even at those times, there was a lot of abduction of women, a lot of raping of women, which was one of the reasons why the Sikhs formed into what Sikhism is basically a standing army to protect the people. So it's important to remember. Sorry?
To protect which people?
Anyone in the local land.
Anyone that's being oppressed.
Not Muslim.
I'm Muslim, everybody.
Anybody. So I'm just saying that the actual religion hasn't moved.
Jews.
There were no Jews. They
What's your
were
attitude to Jews?
very neutral to everybody.
We don't have animosity towards any particular faith, but we do have an animosity in terms of geopolitics. So when India was split, 1 million people died going from India to Pakistan, Pakistan to India. So there was atrocities on both sides. Yeah, so there's atrocities on both sides. So when you talk to like our parents, there is still this kind of resentment when they say about Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis have a little bit of resentment towards the Indians, and that's just from hundreds of years of kind of like turmoil and then the partition. Do we hate each other? No, not really. A lot of people think I hate Pakistan. I think there's been a lot of kind of what I call bad decisions made on both sides. Yeah, there is 250 million.
There's more than the Sikhs, isn't it?
Yeah,
Much more,
there's
yeah.
only 25 million Sikhs in India, and there's 250
Yeah.
million Muslims.
Yeah.
I noticed that some time ago, you may remember, there was a Sikh chased the bag snatcher in front of him. He chased after him, and he got stabbed for his heroism, for being a hero. He brought the guy down, and the guy stabbed him. And it was just a guy who was a Sikh who was here in this country, trying to sending money to his wife and his family back in India. And my family, they wanted to make a donation, like something to do, £100. But we didn't know who to give it to. So we rang the Indian embassy, and we told them we'd like to make a donation. It was very really unhelpful. You know, it was not exactly a hot job, but not in, not in this help.
We haven't got...
Eventually, there's a guy in his flat with his family. He was telling me, I wanted to see how you treat that. So I told them, you should have lived with me. And Phil said, well, when you actually sit down with going out, they help. So from that moment, I realised there was some kind of
animosity.
Yeah,
there is a problem. Like I don't classify myself as Indian, but as Punjabi British Sikh. I don't have an affinity with India as a country because I think they're mistreating the Sikhs. So I think there is a bit of a... The Sikhs are kind of like, let's say the Indian government, we're not their favourite, group or minority. Because we make a lot of noise for such a small people.
That's true.
There's only 25.
Yeah.
A lot of people think there's billions of Sikhs. There's only 25 million. There's billions of people in India. But you would think by our kind of presence that we are like half the country. We're not. There's actually more Christians than Sikhs in India.
Yeah,
so I actually
that's right.
When I came here, you were talking about what? Pakistan?
Khalistan.
Where is that?
So the Sikhs want it doesn't exist. So the Sikhs wanted a separate. Actually, good you come because now we can explain to the viewers. Because we were talking as Sikhs to Sikhs.
We got
so
different.
The viewers are not Sikhs.
So we got Christian person now.
So the Khalistan was a state that Sikhs wanted and still want. It's a separate state from India. So it's the same way let's just say the Basque separatists in Spain, they want a separate country, from Barcelona. So the Sikhs also want a separate country called Khalistan from India. That's the Punjab,
Isn't part of Punjab in Pakistan?
Yeah, so they can have that bit. They've taken it now. We've donated it. Yeah, we've donated it. We let them have it. We've got the good part. And so in India, the problem with the Sikhs in India is that we contribute so much for such a small population, but we're mistreated.
We're not regarded as how we should be.
So I'll give you an example. If you look at the army, I'm going to give you the positive first. Within the army, we only 1% of the country, but 15% of the army. We have all the highest decorated regiments. Nearly all the wars that were fought against Pakistan and them lot had Sikhs within the fighting, and were one of the main reasons why India won those wars. You then have the Punjab is a breadbasket in terms of agriculture of India, and so a lot of the kind of agriculture is coming from the Punjab. You then have the water. Most of the water, Indus Valley civilization, which is one of the oldest civilizations, was in the Punjab. So there's like rivers going across. Punjab means 5 rivers, and so we have a lot of water there. And so what they're doing is they're taking all the water and they're funneling it to different states. And so Punjab is suffering because it's farmland and we need water as well. And also 10,000 Sikhs were massacred in 1984 with this Khalistan movement. The Golden Temple, and there's not been one person brought to justice. And so for Sikhs, we feel like we're being aggrieved. And we're giving so much to India, but we're not getting nothing back.
Can I ask you another question? People say, and this may be totally fallacious, but people like me say, people like I know say, you have to say about India, they're clever people. Well, clearly a lot of Indians are labour. They're not particularly educated or particularly different. But you can also say that among the Indian population, there are some clever people. Clever traders, and their sons and their daughters are well educated, they come work and stuff. But this is particular, is it different in that way?
No, I think it's everybody. I mean, you can talk about this.
South Indians are generally the most educated, most mentally capable. The Punjabis are a different race, much healthier in terms of physical attributes and physical attributes. So in terms of anything with duration, Punjabis stand out. The brains are kind of South India, where Tamil is and that part of the world, and the labourers are UP, Bihar, and that kind of thing. And Mumbai area and Delhi, which are 2 big cities, is very much like a London, the 2 London cities. So India, each state is a completely different world.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. This is one of the biggest problems why India has suffered and has been conquered easily and has not progressed as much as it could have. Because if you look at the caste system, it's holding back the country. Now, I'll give you what a reason why. Within Hinduism, there's a strong caste system, and Brahmins are the top caste. You then have the Visashtras, are they? The warrior class.
Kshatriyas, yeah.
And then you have Dalits. stuff like
Dalits,
that.
untouchables,
So if I missed anything.
they say, yeah.
Yeah, so the bottom is Dalits. So I'm going to go to the bottom.
Dalits are outside the caste.
Yeah, they're outside the
There's
caste.
5 castes, and Dalits are outside the caste system.
Yeah.
It's a bit embarrassing, the white man. So I'm going to go for the top here, which is the Brahmins, and the Dalits at the bottom. What has happened with India is that you could have a Dalit that is like Einstein, and he's the most gifted individual. But because of the caste system is so rigid, he cannot progress. And you could have a Brahmin that's really thick.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
a lot of people that speak this corner, sorry guys, a lot of my haters as well, who are really thick, but they will be in high positions of power because of nepotism or because of their caste.
Suppressed.
Yeah, so you have this big problem. Until that's alleviated and is completely destroyed, we will always have a problem. Like if you look at India, it's a very strange place because you have a space program which is incredible and it's sending out probes to Mars, and it's actually cut the cost of sending a probe to Mars to 25% compared to NASA. But you have people on the street that are defecating. So there's a problem in terms of the disparity, and I think a lot of that has to do with the caste system being so rigid. So people that are able to do something are not allowed to.
Is it becoming less
I disagree.
I don't.
I think the major problem in India is over-democracy with people who sell their vote too easily. For instance, go and take the Uttar Pradesh.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Phil. Hi.
Hi Phil, how you doing? Good evening. Afternoon, sorry.
So, you've got the government will then spend huge amounts of money subsidising water to farmers, and all the money goes to them because the farmers will block vote. Okay? Which means they don't have any money to invest in roads. So the roads will be shit, so they can't get anything away so that they can subsidise water. And it's not going to be the Dalits actually are better off than the lower caste just above them, because the Dalits get special rights now so that they'll get special access into universities.
Has that been recently?
No, not really. Late 1980s onwards.
Yeah.
That is recent.
The
Alright,
SCNBC
okay,
quota.
okay, but
the
still,
quota.
so actually
yeah.
the Dalit can help you, but being lower, if you're a cut above you, then you won't have then you won't have the advantages. So in fact, it's a lot more nuanced than you might expect. But a lot of the problem is just people sell their votes to each other.
Well, the other thing is that what people don't realise, most people in India don't pay tax.
No,
Yeah.
well,
And
that's
so
right.
the problem is you go to India and you go to someone's house and it's beautiful, but then you walk out the roads are crooked. And the reason for that is because people don't pay tax. And so when they're not paying tax, I think they've done a calculation, it was only like 5% of Indians pay tax.
Okay,
That's
well,
right.
look at another problem. Look at another problem in India. No shortage of entrepreneurs in India, are there? Where's the fucking supermarkets? Go to India, you cannot find a proper sized supermarket. It's just grocery shops everywhere. People go, oh no, this is a really big one. And it's like, it's the size of a metro, a Texo metro.
Do you get Indian accent again? It is an Indian word. Ready now.
Really?
That one's fine. It's just turn the camera around. Before you start crying and bitching, it's just a joke.
So
People are so sensitive nowadays. They
But
start crying in the comments.
there's no, so you can't get, there's no economy of scale. You know, there was a point 3 years ago where potatoes were more expensive in India than they were in England.
Yeah, they were.
And Indians here were exporting potatoes to India because there's no effective ways of distributing goods, because India has borders, has actual internal customs. So to go from one state to the other, you've got to still pay. You've got to pay duties to cross the state. It can take 2 days to send a truck across India because they kept getting stopped at every border and having to
And
pay
there's a lot
out.
of corruption as well.
It's immense.
Can I ask you a question about this country? Do you see ramifications of the caste system and possibly corruption in Indian society here?
I mean, actually, the government is trying to tackle the caste system even here, because the Brahmins are at the top, and even for Sikhs, we're a separate religion, and one of the main things that was supposed to be taken out of our faith was the caste. Now, unfortunately, culture infiltrates even people's kind of religion, not religion, but we're Sikh Punjabis here, so the Punjabi culture has caste in it as well. And so when we go to a temple, sometimes it might have a caste name on it, even though it's totally against our faith. Free the milk! But in Hinduism, it's still quite rigid. I'm not sure how bad it is in this country.
If you even look at Christianity in India, you go and see Christian cemeteries And you'll go, oh no, and they'll say, oh no, we're from Brahmin caste India. And you go, you're supposed to be Catholics. How can you be different castes? You're supposed to give that. They'll say, oh no, you're not going to bury you in with it because you are.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I've said, a lot of people say that British bring in the caste. The caste has been there for 4,000 or 5,000 years, and it's going to be very difficult for it to kind of be weeded out of people. A lot of people blame the British all the time, saying it's the British in the caste. What is your kind of, you can go on to this actually, what's your theory on the caste?
Well, look, the caste system obviously existed well before then. It's it's a substantial part of Hindu society. So all that happened was when Britain came over, we sent over a few thousand men, and of course there's a lot of people underneath that goes, we'll do your administration for you.
Yeah.
And then they go, we'll do your administration for you, and then an entire layer came over and brought in all their tricks that they'd learned from working for the Mughals, because all they'd done is they'd exchanged the Mughals for the British, saying, we know how to thrive under an empire, we'll run everything for you, and we'll cream off all the money. And they got so good at it, we said, yeah, you can do that in Africa too. Which is why all over East Africa, there was a layer, under the whites, there was a layer of Asians.
All right, we're going to go on something quite controversial. I suppose
let's just continue. It's just another form of hierarchy which exists everywhere. So, I mean, it's just more intrusive.
So what
you've got to remember is even in this country, any question democracy, there's always an established hierarchy, and this is just maybe a bit more right-wing hierarchy because that's how people gain power.
But the problem with caste is not about meritocracy, it's about your nobility, about what you've been born into. So I've
about power, again.
So this is why India, with the more rigid the caste, I think the more easier it is to manipulate them, because if you believe that as a Brahmin you're above a Dalit, then you're going to be behaving in a way that somebody can come in and manipulate that.
Sure, you can be outraged that you're losing your status. Now, I mean, you're a Sikh. Now, Sikhs, of course, had very privileged status in the British Empire because of your loyalty and ability to fight.
Right. A lot of people are going to say a lot of people say Sikhs are like sellouts. We're not sellouts.
You're not sellouts, you fight yourself.
We're not sellouts.
Sellout to who?
Let me say something. The last part of India to be conquered, well, the rest of India was conquered for 200 years, was the Punjab.
After
and that was
Racing.
only for 97 years. And the only reason the British managed to conquer us is because we had traitors within our camp. In terms of the wars, the two Anglo-Sikh wars, it was more of a kind of
If anybody wants to know about war, okay, 121 years ago, September, about 17th, Battle of Sagahi.
Sarangari.
I mean, it is. I'm an ex-soldier, and I gave lectures on it. It is the most incredible siege ever. It's like, I think 22 Sikh soldiers.
That's all there was.
Fighting against Afghans, Pathans coming in rows, and they would not surrender. And it gets to the point where there is one Risolda, sergeant.
Before I go on, I'm an artist, and my drawing of Battle of Sarangari is actually up in Sanders Military Academy.
And that is.
So that's
Risolda
Yeah. So if you look at the background, it's actually the mountain, and they used to signal with the
that's
lights.
the signal.
So you can see there. So this particular drawing I've done for the 150th anniversary. And so it's actually up in Sanders Military Academy.
Right. So, and then the last thing he says, isn't it, is...
Can I just say the story first?
Yeah, go for it.
21 Sikhs against 10,000 Mujahideen, and we took out maybe 350. They all died, but...
That's nothing.
We did the numbers.
No, he did. And the last words, I mean, this guy says, permission. He says, permission to desert my station so he can take it. He shouts, I don't know the... time is eternal. And then just takes out 3 or 4 just as he goes down. He goes, we are not going to. We are not going to desert our post.
Well, I don't really believe in that whole story about like billions of like Spartans.
No, they're only 300.
Yeah, 300. Yeah. So the thing is that we get a lot of stick. I mean, I've been told as a Sikh because I love the UK as well. Yeah. Although it was bad that happened. So before people go on, I know the British Empire was bad in the sense that the Roman Empire. No one likes to be colonised. The UK was colonised by the Romans as well. I mean, London is Londinian. And so everybody has been colonised. And what I try and say is that even though you're being colonised, there are still, from bad, you can still get some good things. Yeah? So I always, because I get a lot of stick for this, I said that when the British come in, although no one wants to be conquered, nobody, but the war systems put in place, like the common law was put in place, which is still being used. democracy, secularism.
Railways.
And look, people hate when I say railways as well, but it's the same with the British. Just because someone comes in and conquered your country, it doesn't mean you get rid of the roads. Like they're so
the Romans, it's just like, you know, there's that Monty Python. What did the Romans do first? What did they do?
This is what people that are very ignorant want me to say, is that, alright, so Rome come into England and they built aqueducts and roads. So because you hate the Romans, you didn't get rid of the roads. You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, exactly.
What you do is you take the good and you get rid of the bad. The bad were the British, unfortunately, but the good was something.
But hang on, when the Romans invaded here, half the tribes would come up to them and say, look, okay, we're immediately surrendering to you, just get rid of those people over there. And it's pretty much standard everywhere. Well, you find some people who do very well out of a new invader. Also, if you're a Hindu and you're being ruled over by the Mughals,
so can I just speaking?
If you're a Hindu, all right, I'll come around. If you're a Hindu,
all white people.
Yeah, all right. If you're a Hindu and you're being ruled over by the Mughal Empire, why should you be loyal to them and not a different group of people? What does it make a difference?
Well, the problem I have here with a lot of people, they come up to me and say, oh, you're with the British. I said, look, before the British come, we were ruled by the Mughals. For me, it's a lesser of two evils. Yeah, the Mughals were barbaric. They killed over 150 million people over an 800-year period. And the British, obviously, there was a lot of mistakes and things that happened. But you know, you can't condemn the British and then say, oh, the Mughals were fine. And this is what a lot of Muslims do.
But then that's pretty standard. They can only say everything good about what they do as if there's some sort of beneficial ruler.
Well, I say to them that when you talk about the Mughal Empire, and I say to them, oh, when they come in, there were so many atrocities. They will say they're not Muslim. But they will take the architecture from Muslims. So, on the one hand, they don't want the murder, but they will take
the Taj Mahal.
The Taj Mahal, the architecture is the language, the food.
To be selective.
Yeah, so it's very selective. So I've had a lot of conversations with Muslims about Indian, the Islamic conquest of India, and they believe it to be like, you know, people walking around with flowers and hugging each other and kissing each other.
It wasn't the case.
And you know, everyone just converted. No, most people in Pakistan, I'm going to say it again, sorry, Pakistan, you had a sword to your neck, or your ancestors had a sword to your neck, and they converted. The Sikhs and everybody else didn't. So, who were the people that were standing up for themselves? I'm sorry, I'm going to get a lot of hate for that.
And also, the Sikhs had a European level army in 1820, 1830. They fought in French and German instructors.
I've done a drawing.
Under what? Queen Dun, the Queen?
And there was a guy called John Baptiste and Francois Hollande.
The French one.
Yeah, so he had one of the things that Maharaja, the reason why he was the last ruler of Punjab, the reason why he was so good at battling the British is that he used European generals as well, because the tactics were slightly different.
So it was not a.
And before you go in, there's another drawing I've done. So that's John Baptiste.
We know you're good.
So you can see here, I'm not just some dimwit. I do drawings as well. So that's actually a historical drawing. This is exactly what they look like. So you had a French and an Italian general, and this is why the Punjab was a lot harder to conquer because Maharaja Dijit understood using European tactics against Europeans.
So you know, it's not like it was a So one group's exchanged for another. I mean, do people also think that India would now be a unified country had it not been for the Raj at the time?
Oh, this is how the conversation started.
Right. It wasn't now.
The premise of the conversation was, I don't believe that India should have been one unified country. I believe that you should have been maybe 6 or 7 separate countries.
That might have been a better idea.
Yeah, because if you look at a lot of people think of India as a country that has always been there. It's always been lots of different kingdoms and little chiefdoms.
Yeah, it has. And also, you've got languages that are related to each other, but they're quite different. It's just like saying, well, the Germans and Dutch and Scandinavians, we're not all one related.
Well, when you go to South India, North India is the European languages, and when you go to South India, they've got Dravidian. And so it's a completely different dialect. And so
the music's different, the dance styles are different.
And a lot of people don't like to go into race, but they are racially different as well. The people from the south do look different than the people in the north. We have a bit more of an admixture of different cultures. And so when we started the conversation, because I'm renowned for at the park saying I'm British Punjabi Sikh, but I'm not British Indian Sikh. So the reason why I don't classify myself as India is because I don't believe that India as a concept should have ever really been separated the way it did. It should have been maybe 6 or 7 countries rather than 2, which is East Pakistan and
well, yeah, and then they broke off later.
because the guy that done it just kind of literally from England, just like drew the border.
But then that was, I mean, that was demanded by the Congress Party. Yeah, so one to the problems benefit. It's too big to manage.
Yeah, and so you have a lot of strife in India now with a lot of separatist movements because obviously I don't know if you know about the Punjab, we have a lot of issues that we want to separate. I don't believe it's ever going to happen.
No, nor do I. And then part of you is in Pakistan.
Yeah, New Pakistan. No, but yeah, so this is how the conversation started and it kind of went over to other topics as well. And luckily he come in and he's been giving us a different insight as well. Have you got anything you want to say, Manny? You've been quite quiet.
No, I just want to go back to the caste system in India.
Yeah.
Zoom into his clothing.
Indian shirt.
A lot of
I
people
like
are going to be triggered by this.
Are they going to be triggered? Yeah.
They're going to be triggered.
So with the Hindus, before Hinduism comes from a religion called Brahmanism.
Well, yeah, sure, yeah.
And that was a class system created to keep the Brahmins at the top of the
hierarchy.
But with the Sikh side of things, it was never supposed to be a class system. It was supposed to be a system of what you're good at.
But then Sikhism is very new.